Welcome to another fun episode of TigerBytes, the podcast run by Auburn Online, where we feature cutting-edge teaching techniques and emerging technologies coming from all across campus. And so today we're excited to have Moriah Kent with us. Welcome. Moriah is an instructional designer in the Human Resource Development Department. She's also an artificial intelligence implementation specialist for the Big EO Center.
Yes.
So you sort of split your time between those two entities. Is that like a 50-50 split?
I wish. Maybe like 80-20.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Auburn.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Colorado, and my background is in teaching English as a second or a foreign language. So after I got my undergraduate degree in art history at University of Colorado, Denver, I left and taught English in Japan for 3 years. And then I came back to the United States and got my master's of teaching in English at Colorado State in Fort Collins.
Home of Fat Tire.
Oh, yeah. You know it. We got the beers up there, the microbreweries. Yeah. Yeah. After that, I got a Fulbright to teach in Bulgaria.
Oh, wow.
And then I worked for the United States, the U.S. State Department in the English Language Fellowship Program and taught in Indonesia. And then I thought, you know what? After a decade of this, I want to come home and be closer to my family. So I came back and I somehow landed in Auburn, Alabama.
And you've been here how long?
I've been here since 2019.
Okay.
So that was 7 years. Yeah. I met my husband here, bought my first house here. So,
Nice.
yeah.
What's your favorite part about Auburn?
Ooh, my favorite part about Auburn is probably the walking trails that we have. Like Chihuahua is a really nice one. Love the Career Nature Preserve. Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm a big Colorado fan.
Yeah.
Spent some time checking out the old ghost towns from the mining days.
What's your favorite one?
Upper Swan Dyke.
Okay. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Now,
Victor's
nobody watching
mine.
this is
I know. Nobody's going to know what we're talking about. Yeah. Love a ghost town. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you've worked for both Auburn Online and HRD. Tell us a little bit about what HRD does, because I think there's a lot of folks that don't really know.
Oh, yeah. So HRD, we do a lot. Actually, we're a small team. We have about 5 folks. The major initiatives that we are responsible for are the education and dependent benefit. So the employee education and dependent benefit. So you can use that for your dependents for undergraduate tuition, 50% off, or you as an employee, after a year of working at Auburn, you can take classes here at Auburn for full tuition, which is awesome. The other thing that we are responsible for is ACE Performance, which is the performance review process for A&P and university staff right now. And we also, we manage Elevated, the employee learning management system, and we provide classes, both e-learning, virtual, and in person. And we also have the Aspire Auburn Leadership Development Program. That is 4 levels. We have Leading Self, that is available to all employees, Leading People, which is for supervisors, and then we are getting ready to pilot and launch Leading Teams for folks that lead teams on campus.
And these are all free for employees?
100% free, yeah.
It's an opportunity to be the best you can be.
100%, yeah.
On Auburn's dime.
Yes. Yeah, Auburn is investing in its
Nice.
employees through HRD, yeah.
So how has your approach to instructional design evolved across those 2 settings, especially in terms of engaging adult learners?
I would actually say my approach to online learning changed more when I transitioned out of teaching English as a second or a foreign language into workforce development because my audience changed so significantly. It's so different when you're working with a cohort of students for a semester and your objectives are grammar and vocabulary and a cultural point versus working with adults who are in the workforce. They need timely, relevant, applicable, engaging training to be able to do their jobs. That's a very different approach to learning. So I sort of went from pedagogy to andragogy over the last few years. And so I rely on things like Kathy Moore's action mapping and adult learning theory when approaching learning for adults.
What's a misconception you think most people have about online learning, and how do you try to combat that misperception?
I think instructional designers are problem solvers by nature. And so I think that when someone comes to me and says, I need a training for this, it's going to solve this problem and it needs to be done at this time period, you've got to get to what the root of the problem actually is, because rarely can training alone fully solve a problem.
Mm.
So, kind of putting on that excavator hat and just asking a lot of questions and really digging in deep to figure out, is it a problem that can be solved through training, or is something else needed, or is training just part of the solution and there's something larger going on? Yeah.
So it sounds like some of the folks that you deal with have unrealistic expectations about how quickly something can be put together.
I definitely think so. And it's hard, right? Because when most people interact with an online learning, they see that beautiful finished
Right,
product,
right.
right? Yeah. They don't know.
It's simple and elegant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which, thank you. We do try to be simple and elegant. But yeah, I think, and that's fair. They don't know the months long process it can take, the meetings, the content verification, the media creation, the drafts that go through approvals. So it's can be a very long process. But then they get to interact with the finished product. And so I think you have to be really good at explaining what you do and how long something can take to just set those expectations.
I mean, I think that's true in most areas of life.
Yeah,
Setting expectations
a
is just
hundred
so
percent.
critical.
100%. Yeah. And we're super seeing that with like AI right now as well, right? Folks not really or having very high expectations of artificial intelligence and then getting really frustrated when it doesn't do what they want to do. And so expectation setting has been huge there as well. Right now, those of us that are using artificial intelligence in the workplace in particular, we're using it to help us do existing
Hmm.
workflows. And I think that there's like so much opportunity for us when we start to talk about how to use AI to totally
Mm.
reevaluate and rework how we do things. And I was actually just talking to my husband about this because we were like, what's an example of like something that has totally changed how we work, the way that AI is starting to be able to do that? And the thing that we came up with was like, NASA and like sending astronauts to space, right? Like
Hmm.
weight is a huge issue. So they can go up effectively and come back safely. So we were thinking about like, well, in the past you had to like pack all the tools, make sure you had
Mm.
all the spare parts and anticipate every single problem. But then the 3D printer came along,
Hmm.
and now they don't have to bring all of that weight. They can just take the 3D printer up there with them
Right.
and print what they need when they need it. And I was thinking about like even when it comes to like test creation or quizzes or like how we learn, I think that there's such opportunity here to like fully reevaluate how we do things. And I think there's like good models with like a flipped classroom and stuff like that that already
Right. Right.
exist, right? That we could really build on, but I think there's just like so much opportunity there. And I love the idea of taking the time and the money that we don't invest in those things because we're using artificial and putting them back into causes that mean something
Right.
to
Right.
us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see what you're saying. Like you could, I can imagine an exam that's not the traditional, here's five choices, a more dynamic approach to testing based on people answering a question. Did they get it right or wrong? It
Right.
takes it down different pathways. But I think it would be hard to get people to kind of buy into that paradigm, both on the teacher side and on the student side. I think they'd have a hard time. I'm used to five answer choices and one's right.
No, totally, totally.
Yeah,
And I think that's the challenge with innovation, right?
right.
Is like the work that goes into doing that, like that heavy work has to be done up front where you actually
Mm-hmm.
take the time to slow down, reevaluate, say, this isn't working. What can we actually do to fix this? And, I think a lot of folks feel like they don't have the time right now. But I'm hoping with tools that we have, like artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, like Copilot here on campus, that like we are actually seeing data come out of Tiger Tech Leaders, which is our Microsoft 365 Copilot beta group. We just launched our fourth quarter survey, and one of the pieces of data that I found most interesting is something like 57% of folks who are using Copilot said that they actually take on more work with the time that they're
Mm.
saving. And so I'm thinking, like, what does that mean to take on more work here? Does that mean continuing to do things the same way that we've always done them?
Right,
Or does it
right.
mean taking the time and reevaluating it and reimagining it and being innovative and growth oriented? So, but I think too, right? Somebody has to lead the way. Somebody has to take the plunge to say, we're not going to do it this way anymore. We're
Right.
going to try it this way.
Do you worry at all about the negative ramifications of
Oh,
AI?
certainly, certainly. I mean, it's hard not to, right? You see things in the news that are concerning, right? And I think when it comes to that stuff. It's absolutely valid, and I always want to tell folks like I recognize that and validate that, and it's okay to be afraid. This is a crazy time. Things are changing so rapidly, and we don't know what the future of AI looks like. Yeah, so I mean, I think like folks have every right to be concerned, but I also think that there's a lot of like really good that's going on, good things, like good potential, right, with artificial intelligence. And so I think that there's a lot to be said for even the mundane that happens with artificial intelligence. Like if you were to say like what's the most exciting thing about artificial intelligence, I think it's just like the little stuff that we can do on a daily basis. um, Everything from using ChatGPT to like cut down on the time that we're spending, but also we with Microsoft 365 Copilot here on campus, if you are using that, and let's say you're like someone in world languages or you work with K through 12, so a lot of parents maybe that English isn't their first language, you can actually ask Copilot to translate like a Word document or a PowerPoint. And it will not just translate the PowerPoint, it will translate the notes and the alt text on images.
Yeah.
And I've done a demo of that multiple times, and every time someone in the audience has another language background. So we've done it in French, Spanish, German, and Korean. And every time that we've done it, I've asked them to verify, like, is this garbage or like is this good? And they've been like very impressed by it, right? But I think also, when folks see that, the immediate reaction is usually like amazing, like oh my gosh. But then it very quickly turns to, I think, panic of like, what does this mean for learning? What does this mean for communication? And so I think what's a little bit concerning to me there is actually that conversation itself. Because I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of folks say things like, nobody can write anymore or nobody can critically think anymore. And to me, I find that conversation very absolutist and nihilistic. And I think it doesn't leave room for the growth and innovation that's possible with artificial intelligence. Um, so that that conversation itself I find concerning as well, because I think folks feel like when we see news stories that are like, here's this catastrophic thing that happened with AI, it can feel like we don't have agency when it comes to this conversation. And I think that AI is not happening to us. I think that we have a choice,
Right.
and it is our duty to use our critical thinking skills to decide when, where, and how we use artificial intelligence. And it is at the end of the day our choice how we interact with it. So I think that that's always an important takeaway for folks. And if they haven't like dabbled in AI at all, so if you have folks that just are very reluctant to use it, I always like encourage them to go try it out. Especially here at Auburn, right? We have enterprise level data protection with Copilot. So you have that protected space where your conversations don't go back to Microsoft, they don't go back to OpenAI. Your data stays here in Auburn, so you can have a private conversation and you can really see what AI can and can't do for you.
Right.
And I think that goes a long way to helping people balance it out, because it's hard to cut through the noise when you're hearing about AI every single day.
The balance between embracing AI and maintaining academic integrity and critical thinking. So I ran in, I'm teaching a summer course and we have discussion boards, and I've been pretty careful to try to write prompts that require people to write, that they can't just, use ChatGPT. And in most cases that's been fine, but one or two of the discussion boards I didn't do a good enough job. And so I actually had I'm in the speed grader, and I actually have consecutive responses that use a lot of the same phrasing.
Sure.
And so I sent both of those people a note saying, here's your response, here's this other person's response. I'm not making any accusations, but I want to remind you that the course policy is you can't be using artificial intelligence to answer your discussion boards.
So, okay, I'm so glad you asked or like brought this up, because I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you think of academic integrity, like how would you define it?
You're presenting work as your own that is your own.
Okay. So, yes, agreed. I feel like when this question comes up, and this is like this is my background in teaching English as a second
Mm,
or foreign language kind of coming out, right? Because plagiarism was a huge topic in TESOL. And the reason for that is because you have students who are learning English whose background, language, and culture treat academic integrity totally differently, right? Like we say, academic integrity is being able to cite correctly, paraphrase well.
right.
We even go so far as to say that you can self plagiarize,
Hmm.
which is kind of wild when you think about it, right? And that's a very like Western United States way of looking at how to build and share knowledge. And so when we have the conversations around using artificial intelligence, I can't help but think that just the existence of artificial intelligence and the wide adoption, right? Almost everyone is using AI, I would argue, right? Whether or not we're admitting it,
Mm,
most folks have dabbled in it and most of our students are using it, right? These artificial intelligence models, and I'm really talking about large language models like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, are built using data that may or may not have been fair use, but either
right.
way, there is no citing this information. And so to me, that flies in the very face of academic integrity itself, but we are still using and adopting this technology. And so, like Anthropic, so Claude, they actually recently sort of won half of a lawsuit
Mm,
where the judge ruled that the output that Claude creates is so significantly different from the training input that it could be considered, new and different enough. But Claude or Anthropic also, I believe, used paper books and they bought them and fed them into
mm,
the model. And so that is an ongoing lawsuit. Like,
right.
so to me, there's so many questions here.
The
And
Wild West.
it's the Wild West. It's the golden era Wild West. Yeah. but but that's also exciting to me because I think that there's a larger almost like global conversation to be had around building and sharing knowledge right now. And it's I think the time is right for us to really be examining what that looks like and if there's room for growth and change even in the concept of academic integrity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I also wonder about hypocrisy. So
Mm.
I told you a little while ago, I created a bunch of test bank questions using
Right,
ChatGPT, but
right, right.
now I'm turning around and telling the students, no,
You
you
can't
can't
use it.
be,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit different because they're not fully educated yet. They're getting course credit,
Yeah.
etc. I'm not getting any benefit really from
Right, right.
creating that test bank.
And then once they enter the workforce, like guardrails are off, right? So
This is
like,
always the debate. So I'm older than you.
are you?
Yeah, but I can remember very well the debate around calculators.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
And so, back in the day, things like taking exams with a calculator, that was considered cheating.
Right,
And then
right.
little by little, it became acceptable to use a calculator on an exam. And
And I think this comes back to that critical like thinking conversation, right? Being able to know when it's
right,
appropriate, why you're using it, how you're using it. I mean, to me, it's the critical thinking skill of like having good judgment
right.
that really applies here. Like I don't need a calculator in my work, but I still do the budget for our department, right? So I do need a calculator.
Mm,
But yeah, I mean the real world is just different. And so again, this comes back to like that NASA example for me. Like, what's the 3D printer in education? What's it gonna be? What's the 3D printer in the workforce, depending on
mm,
like what job you're in, right? Um, and I say the 3D printer rather than the calculator because I think that artificial intelligence is a little bit more complex than how the calculator or the typewriter kind of changed things because we're talking about like how people communicate and collaborate now. I think it's a different conversation.
you have a feel where you think things will go over the next 3 to 5 years in this area?
Ooh. Um I definitely think that there is a real focus and a real needed conversation on what is uniquely human: emotional intelligence, empathy, vulnerability, and how do we build up those skills. So, like, if I'll give you an example, right? Like, let's say you have an employee, we'll call them employee X. And X is really good at their job. They can complete tasks quickly and efficiently, but X is a complete jerk. And nobody likes to work with them because they're haughty, they're mean, they're grumpy, right? And then you have employee ABC, but they're using artificial intelligence to help them do the same quality of work as employee X now. Well, that leaves X with a choice. Do they build up themselves, work on themselves, evaluate, reflect, and grow, or risk being left behind when you have employees who can collaborate and adapt and work well with others, but they have a tool that can help them be as productive and efficient? So I think that there's going to be a real focus on those uniquely human skills. And I mean, especially here at Auburn, right, we value the human touch. And so I think that that's something that is becoming a very salient topic right now. And so I think you see that in like the humanities, the liberal arts. You see that in professions where like the human touch is crucial, healthcare. I work with a student over in the personal training program out of the Wellness and Rec Center. Shout out Anna. Hi. She is awesome. We have been talking over the last like year that we've been together about like her adoption of AI as a student, but and we'll talk about it and like how she's using it kind of in her studies and stuff. But then we come together for this hour and there's no phones, there's no technology, and she has to be able to communicate with me. She has to be able to be empathetic,
Look you in the eye.
look me in the eye. If I show up and I'm having a bad day or I'm tired or I didn't get to eat lunch, but I gotta lift 15 pounds, like she's got to know how to motivate me and connect with me
Right.
in a real like vulnerable way, right? And so I think those are skills that are really going to be setting folks apart in the future.
It's interesting you say that because I've actually developed with Auburn Online a course on winning skills,
Nice.
which is largely soft skills, but it's also mindset and some of those internal things as well. We have a full 3-credit course.
I love that.
We also have digital badges that people can earn
Excellent.
if they don't want to take a full course or if they're not part of the university.
I love
So
that.
this was the idea.
Yeah.
Was to help people become the best versions of themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Out of HRD, right, we're seeing so much interest in Aspire Auburn, that leadership development program. And what I found really incredible about that is the leading people track is about 90% in person. So it's 6 weeks, 3 hours a week, and people come, they're showing up. And I think there's this like, I think folks are teched out right now. And I totally get it, because even I go home and I'm like, I don't want to touch a phone or a computer. Let me put a record on the record player and like touch a pen and draw paper. But I think what we're seeing is like this real desire for face-to-face human connection.
Well, thanks for being here. We're out of time, but I really appreciate your time. I feel like we could talk about this stuff all day.
I know, we certainly could,
Maybe
yeah.
we'll have you back for round 2.
Would
Mariah,
love
thanks so
to.
much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of TigerBytes. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained some valuable insights. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can find us on all major platforms, and keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on TigerBytes.